Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Glenn Thayer.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our last session here in the Big Ideas Theater and the final keynote of the Leadership and Equality track. You know, we have had an awesome last couple days here in the Big Ideas Theater. We've been privileged to hear from thought leaders and experts from so many diverse fields, astrophysics to emotional AI to human perseverance and neuroscience. The value of these sessions over the last couple days have been amazing. Now, you will notice this is a Wi-Fi free zone, and what we really want you to do is take this hour to just unplug. Unplug and think big. And if you were in our last session that just happened with Amy Posey, you would know exactly what I was talking about. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, it was all about neuroscience and unplugging. So we're going to be using a box called the Catch Box to take questions after Kara's session. If you want to throw this to me. This is basically a throwable microphone. So if you have questions for Kara, what we want you to do is just raise your hand really, really high. And we've got a couple of these folks in green shirts. They will throw the Catch Box to you. I'll call on you. They'll throw you the box. And then you just ask your question. The easy way to do it, this is the microphone. Just put it right here. Talk into the box. When you're done, toss it right back to them. And we're good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome from the sponsor of the Leadership and Equality track, the Director of Networking Solutions for CDW, Neil Shapleski.
Welcome back. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the final session on today's agenda. My name is Neil Shapleski, and I'm with CDW, and we're proud to be partnered with Cisco and participate in another great conference this year. I am honored to introduce our speaker for this keynote presentation titled, How This Entrepreneur Turned Her Diet Soda Addiction into a Company. And I gotta be honest, when I read that title, I said, wow, I gotta meet this woman, because I don't know about you, but I'm about 5 or 6 sodas in already. So if there's an alternative path, I am all for it. Kara Goldin is the founder and CEO of Hint Incorporated. It's a San Francisco-based company which produces Hint water, the leading unsweetened flavored water. Her incredible career includes being named among the Fortune's most powerful women entrepreneurs and Forbes' 40 Women to Watch over 40. Other illustrious accolades include being named one of the 6 disruptors in business by the Huffington Post, along with legends such as Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg. She earned the Ernst & Young 2017 Northern California Entrepreneur of the Year and was named by San Francisco Business Times the most influential woman, along with so many more. Kara and Hint Water's success exemplifies the value of listening and empowering customers, being disruptive in the marketplace, and choosing purpose over profits. We should all learn from her story and try to apply to our different businesses. In addition to welcoming her to the stage, I also want to thank Kara for providing all of us the Hint water during her session. I can see why it's been successful. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kara Goldin.
How are you? Thanks so much. Yeah, appreciate it. Hi, everybody. How are you? Super, super excited to be here today, and wow, what an amazing, amazing conference. I mean, all the rooms that are set up, I bet it's been amazing to be around here for the last couple of days, right? Everybody's, yeah, it's great, super great. So I'm Kara, and I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about how I started this crazy company. And how many had Hint prior to coming here today? So a few hands there, great, awesome. So when I speak at college audiences, I always like to tell them that I never thought that I was going to be a beverage executive. In a million years, that was not sort of what I felt like my calling was. And I say that because I'm a big believer in really looking as life goes on for your purpose and sort of taking things as they come along to you and going along with that. And I mention it because I started my career actually, as I mentioned, not in the beverage industry, but in the magazine industry. And I was working in New York. I always wanted to be a writer. And after a few years in the magazine industry, I went on into media, went into work for a guy named Ted Turner at a little company called CNN, and helped launch something called the Airport Channel. Was very, very excited about doing that. And then I decided to move out to San Francisco, got married, moved to San Francisco, and had been following a guy named Steve Jobs, who was doing some interesting work around making the internet a little, seem a little bit faster than at the time. I'm totally aging myself. Baud modem speeds were like 9,600 baud modem speeds. Does anybody remember those days, right? And so I went to work on a project that was had been spun out of another Silicon Valley company, and I decided that I would go and work on this. And basically, it was a CD-ROM shopping company that quickly was acquired by a company called AOL. So I went on to work at AOL, was building this thing called shopping and e-commerce that was never supposed to happen as fast as it did all through the 90s. And then in 2001, I decided, after building it into a billion-dollar business, that it was time to leave, and I wasn't going to spend as much time on the plane, and be back in the place where I was living with my family, San Francisco. And so while I was trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do with the rest of my life, I decided that I was going to get healthy, and I was going to start working out, and I was really going to pay attention to what I needed to do in order to get healthy. And after all, I'm looking for a job, so while I've got those job interviews coming in, then I'll go and do this. And so the first thing I remember sitting there and telling friends, like, they said, so what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm running a little bit, and I had been a competitive gymnast growing up, hence my injury there that I'm dealing with now today. And as long as I'm going to be shopping at places like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and doing some running, then I'm going to get healthy automatically. And it just wasn't that easy. I don't know if anyone's ever done that phase before. And what I noticed is that I really had been kind of fooled by thinking that if I actually went and shopped at certain places and did 30 to 45 minutes of exercise, that it would just kind of happen. And it really didn't. And one day I got on the scale, and I was telling some friends and telling my husband, I really want to lose this weight, and the weight just won't come off. And I hopped on the scale, and honestly hadn't even really been on the scale much, because I just didn't really want to know what it said. And I was over 50 pounds overweight after losing some baby weight, and finally ended up seeing a doctor who told me that sometimes when you age, and this is just kind of the natural progression of what happens in life. And what else did he say? Your metabolism changes, your hormones change, lots of things that just didn't make any sense to me. And so finally, the doctor handed me a prescription. And the prescription basically was for diet medication. And I thought, I don't really need to go there necessarily. I just need to work out more, and I need to go and shop at these places and really continue to eat healthy. And finally, I just decided I'm not going to fill the prescription for this diet medication until I really understand what I'm putting into my body every day. And the thing that I had the biggest relationship with was diet soda, Diet Coke in particular. And I never in a million years thought that that was really what the issue was. I really thought that that was something that had over 30 ingredients in it, and I didn't really understand what those ingredients were. But I didn't really understand that that was preventing me from actually getting as healthy as I wanted to be. And it wasn't just weight. It was also my skin. I had developed terrible adult acne, which I never even had as a teenager. My energy was just super low. There were lots of things that were really, really causing me to think, like, I want to get healthier and be the person that I really want to be. And so finally, I decided to throw everything out in the refrigerator and in the pantry that I didn't understand the ingredients. And I was amazed at how many things were actually in my kitchen that I was putting into my body that I just was like on autopilot, just saying like, okay, I'm just going to have that because it says the word diet, or it says the word low fat, or people had told me, oh, this is healthy, or I had seen it on TV or read it in magazines that it was healthier. But I thought, as a smart person, why have I been listening to everybody else and putting into my body and then realizing that I'm not really as healthy as I want to be? And so 2.5 weeks later, after giving up my Diet Coke, and it was tough, actually. I mean, a lot of people ask that, what were the key problems that you saw when you gave up the Diet Coke? And it was headaches a little bit, but it was actually stomach more than anything else. Like, I really was going through a detox that I had no idea that the diet soda was almost like masking it, because it was just constantly in my stomach at all times. And then when I finally gave it up, it was like my whole system just thought, okay, where is it? And it was just going nuts. And 2.5 weeks after giving up the diet soda, I hopped on the scale and realized that I had lost 20 pounds. And I thought, how could this happen? I mean, this is diet soda. This isn't supposed to happen. And then I also realized something else, things like pasta, for example, that I could actually sit down and eat an entire bowl of pasta after going on a run. I couldn't even eat that much of it anymore because it was just so much food for me. And I really started to see that my brain was doing something when I was eliminating these diet sweeteners that I had never experienced before in my life. And I felt great. Like, I felt like I had so much energy. And the only thing that I was really, really disappointed in was that plain water for me had always been super boring. I grew up in Arizona and knew and aspired to really drink water, but I never did. And somewhere along the way, I thought, okay, as long as I'm drinking diet soda, like, that is somewhere there's water in there, so that's probably, good enough. But I never really realized what it was actually doing to my brain and getting me to crave sweets and getting me to crave other things versus actually good and healthy and better for you food. So I was continuing on this journey. I was interviewing for jobs in Silicon Valley, and I just became really, really interested in how I had been so fooled by all of these marketing messages around diet and low fat. And I also have kids. I had 3 kids at the time. I have 4 now. But I was looking at all of these messages, media messages, marketing messages that were coming at me that really, frankly didn't have my back for actually helping me and helping my family to get healthy and stay healthy. And so one day I was trying to figure out, how do I actually drink more and more water? And I had a bunch of fruit on the counter, and I sliced up the fruit, and I threw it in the water, and I realized that it got me to drink all the water that I really wanted to drink again. And I had pitchers that I put in the refrigerator, and the big challenge that I saw with the pitchers was that after a little, like a day and a half, that the fruit would kind of get, I called it smeggy-ish looking, like it just didn't look that great after a day and a half. And so I went into my local Whole Foods, and I talked to the guy that was stocking the shelves, and I said, listen, I have no idea exactly what I'm looking for, except that I think it's like fruit and water, and I don't want anything with sweeteners in it. And every label that I was reading had some sort of sweetener in it. And he said, oh, no, there's a product called vitamin water. And vitamin water is exactly what you're looking for. And so I turned the bottle around with him and showed him what I had seen, which was, again, in this case, over 35 ingredients. At that time, 14 years ago, vitamin water actually had more sugar in it than a can of Coke. And I said to him, why do you think it's healthy? I'm just curious. And he said, because it says water, and it says vitamins. And I said, I know, this is crazy. I mean, this was me. Like, I thought Diet Coke. Like, that means that it's healthier and better for you. And so then a week later, I came back into the store, and he told me that he talked to a buddy of his and told him that he had had this conversation with me, and then he wanted to show me the cracker aisle and tell me how much sugar was in lots of crackers at the Whole Foods there, and I started laughing. And I said, I know, like, this is what I've experienced, that all of these foods and drinks at the end of the day, it's just disappointing, because there's people who are paying real money to go and really try and shop, and sometimes they're even willing to go and pay more money in these stores that are, supposedly healthier and better for you, right? And he said, yeah, it's really crazy. And I said, okay, well, getting back to this product that I'm looking for, I'm like, where do you think I can find it? And he said, gosh, a still water that has fruit in it and no sweeteners in it, I've never seen it. I've seen some carbonated versions of the product, but I've never seen a still version of the product. And so I went home, and I said to my husband, okay, I've got it. I know I built a pretty successful business at AOL, and I'm talking to some different tech firms, but I've decided that I want to start a beverage company. And he said, Kara, I think that's the stupidest idea that I've ever heard you say. And I was like, that's awesome, so supportive, so great, I love it. And I said, but see, here's the thing. If we can actually get people to enjoy water again, then we will be doing much more than actually starting a beverage company. We will be getting people to take their health back, and take their health back from companies that they actually have been listening to the marketing from. And we could actually change health not only in America, but also the world. And that is what I want to do. And he looked at me and said, I still don't think it's a great idea. You have no idea what you're up against. And he said, what is the name of this company? And I said, I've been thinking a lot about it, and I had clearly been in sort of baby stage for a little too long. And I said, so I think that it should be called Wawa, because when mothers are actually trying to get their kids to drink water, they say, why don't you have some Wawa? And he said, no, you're the only one that does that, actually. No one else does that. And I said, okay. And he said, and by the way, he's a Silicon Valley he was a Silicon Valley attorney, and he said, by the way, if you don't listen to me about anything else, listen to me on this one, because there's this large company in Pennsylvania called Wawa, and if you're really successful, they're going to crush you like a bug. And I said, okay, so what else would we call this? And he said, well, keep talking, and let's really hear, what you're thinking about. I mean, if you're really looking at this as a way to actually get people to change behavior and really create this movement, like, what are you doing? And I said, we're giving people hints. We're giving people lots of ideas about how they can actually get healthier, and that's super, super cool, and that gets me up every day. And I said, and it's just like a hint of real fruit essences that are in the water as well. And if we can, let's call it hint. And he said, 4-letter word, not going to happen either. And so at that point, I wasn't really liking my husband really very much at this point. And so I said, listen, you're an intellectual property trademark attorney, so why don't you just file the word hint, and let's see what happens. And he said, okay, but you're not going to get it. And I said, listen, you stop getting into the business side of things, you just go ahead and do this. And all of a sudden, I had the secret that I didn't really want to share with him, and I thought there was no better time than to tell him at this point, but I was pregnant with our 4th child. And so he looked at me, and he said, so you're pregnant with our 4th child, and you're starting a beverage company, and you're a tech executive that probably shouldn't be doing either of these things. And I said, I know, it's crazy, right? But I've already got the plant all set up in Chicago that we're going to go visit to actually go bottle this product. And so I'd love it if you came with me just to kind of see what we're doing. And he very concerned and decided, okay, great, I'll go along with you. And so we went to the plant in Chicago, and I think at that point he really started to see what I was talking about, which was that we had been in our house really consumed with all of these products, lots of juices that we were giving our kids, lots of, my diet soda addiction had gone away, but there were lots of other things in the house that, were not so great. And he really saw that if we could actually get back to drinking water or a product like Hint, again, we could really change health in America and potentially change a lot more than that with just helping people to actually take their health back. So so he quickly was, sort of thinking about this. I think a little bit concerned because I decided to self-finance this company. We didn't go out and try and raise money from any Silicon Valley venture firms, definitely not at that point. And so I finally got back to San Francisco, pregnant with my fourth, and went back into Whole Foods and said, listen, do you remember me? I have this idea to actually make water taste better, and I'd really, really love for you guys to stock it. And the guy said, well, there's no guarantee that we're going to stock it, but you're super pregnant. And I said, I know. I'm actually delivering this afternoon at 2 o'clock this afternoon, going in for a planned delivery. And he said, okay, fine, I'll let you know how it goes. And basically, I had no idea whether or not this was actually going to work out or not, whether or not he was actually going to put it on the shelf. But he did. And the next day, we got a phone call in California Pacific in San Francisco that they had actually sold out of 10 cases in 24 hours, which was super crazy. I still didn't actually believe that anyone was going to buy it. I sort of thought, what are the other beverage companies doing? And I actually went so far as to say to the guy when he said that the product is gone, I said, who took the product? I really, really believed that somebody was potentially messing with the shelf space that we had. So we got it into Whole Foods, and we thought, we're off to the races. Like, it's going to blow up. It's going to be, the next multi-billion-dollar company. And what I didn't realize was how competitive the beverage industry was. I think I had sort of heard that the beverage industry, CPG, there was lots of stuff going on with shelf space, and obviously it goes on in other industries as well, but I had no idea sort of the challenges that we would have in order to really grow the company and get the shelf space that we needed to have. And so my husband at this point really saw what I was doing and how energized I was about it, and really, we talk about it now as really a purpose-driven company. I mean, back when I started the company 13 years ago, that nobody was even talking about entrepreneurs that really wanted to make a difference. It wasn't a clear definition of people who wanted to get up and do something that could actually really help society and change the world in a way. And for me, it was really about health. And so he asked me if he could come and work with me and hop into this crazy company called Hint, which, by the way, we ended up getting the trademarks for, even though he had thought that we weren't going to get that. And so he came in as chief operating officer around the same time, and his focus really was to actually help grow the company. And it was interesting. I mean, we did it. We always said from the beginning that we had no idea what we didn't know. Distribution was one point, but also the other thing that I've been, super proud of over the years, that things like preservatives in so much of our food. We don't use any preservatives in our product, and we kept asking the question when bottlers would say to us, oh, you have to use a preservative, especially because you guys are using real fruit in your product. And I said, why? Like, why do we have to use that? I came from tech and media, and I had no idea why we had to use it. And so the response consistently was, you have to use it because you have to get more shelf space. And I said, okay, but why? And I tell entrepreneurs all the time that, that was really an advantage when I look back on it now, because when I look at people that have been trained in the large food or beverage companies, they've been trained by people who have said to them, you need to do things a certain way. You need to add preservatives to your product. You need to add a sweetener to your product. You need to do this. You need to do this. And I truly, authentically did not understand why. And I was willing to really put myself out there and continue to ask people why this was. And in many, many ways, that caused the people that we were talking to, a lot of the bottlers, to actually question themselves and question themselves as to why they were doing exactly what these large companies had done as well. And so fast forward 13 years, we've continued to build this company. Hint today is the fastest growing flavored water in the US that does not have a relationship with Coke, Pepsi, or Dr. Pepper Snapple. It's something that I fundamentally believed. Yeah, thank you. So I fundamentally believe that as we grew this company, and it's not to say that we haven't talked to them over the years. I've also said that we're on Union Street, if anybody's familiar with San Francisco. I've said that I've always welcomed the large soda companies to come in and sort of hear a little bit about what we're doing. But at the end of the day, I never really believed that they really had our, basically our incentive for doing this. And in every single meeting that I've had over the years, it's really been clearer and clearer that there is not a company like Hint that is really looking out for the consumer in a way that really wants to create change. And I'll tell you a story that even became clearer. We are currently trying to fight to change the federal school lunch programs. Shockingly, we are one of the only beverage companies that is actually trying to change the federal school lunch program. So today, the federal school lunch programs for K through 8, it was written by the USDA. So the Dairy Association wrote these rules almost 20 years ago. And basically, the USDA says for K through 8, if schools are taking any kind of federal lunch money or federal program money, and that's not just public schools, but Catholic schools that are actually getting some sort of federal money to allow kids to have lower pay for admission into the schools, right? So they are basically under this program as well, where it's milk, orange juice, or tap water. And the biggest challenge today in schools is that schools cannot actually guarantee that kids' tap water that's running into those schools is clean. And so while that is not necessarily something that a beverage company should care about, I care about it. And so we were in Washington 2 weeks ago, met with 7 senators who were all in agreement that this has to change. That kids, if we cannot guarantee that our kids have access to clean drinking water, then they should be able to have bottled water or a product like Hint that doesn't have sugar or sweeteners in it. And so we are leading efforts not just around trying to actually get consumers to buy our product, but actually trying to create change on super, super big levels in order to try and make these things happen. So, and shockingly, we are not seeing a whole lot of beverage companies actually jumping into that game as well. So just in terms of the purpose, and when we started this company, it's the purpose really hasn't changed much. I mean, we are really just still trying to get people to drink water. We are nationwide in stores, like I mentioned, Whole Foods. We've also continued to be grow in conventional grocery stores. We've also gone into college campuses. Schools have been tougher because of these federal programs that are in place. High school, actually, they can have bottled water, but they cannot have flavored water like Hint because the definition is not exactly clear that people can have that yet. So we've been continuing to grow in all of these markets, and a few years ago, we looked at how do we actually go up against these slotting fees that are in place in a lot of these stores where large companies like the large soda companies, and it also happens in food as well, are actually paying like $50 to $60 to $70 million to actually get shelf space. So when you go into a store, a large conventional grocery store, and you see that there's a large presence from a certain company, that it doesn't necessarily mean that it was selling the most, but it actually means that they paid. So it's like real estate. So we decided that that was just a whole lot of money, and as a small company, we probably wouldn't be able to play in that game. So we went back to what I really knew, which was the customer and actually online. And fast forward the last 3 years, we have 40% of our business that is actually direct to consumer and sending cases directly into people's homes. 80% of those people are actually subscribing. And this year, it will probably be over 50% of our business is actually online, which is crazy. No other food or beverage company is doing that. And I think for me, not only is that an easier business because I'm not dealing with trying to understand the real estate deals that go on that are really grandfathered in many cases to a lot of these soda companies and food companies, but what I've realized is that consumer health is not just about what was happening for me, but is also what's happening for other consumers that are drinking our product. So every single day, I hear from consumers that we're not only helping them to drink more water, but we're also helping them to get rid of their Diet Coke addiction, get rid of type 2 diabetes, get rid of weight, get rid of acne, get rid of lots of things that ultimately go back to this addiction to sweet, which exists in our society today. And so as an entrepreneur, I had no idea 13 years ago how much pleasure you get from hearing from customers every single day that you're actually creating great change, not just for themselves, but also for their family. And that's just been super, super rewarding. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate it. If you guys want to get in touch with me, I'm on Twitter, mostly at Kara Goldin, and I'll take some questions too, if that's, yeah.
We've got time for some questions here. The first question, I think, isn't for you, but it's for everybody else. Are you enjoying the hemp water?
Awesome.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
That's always good. And it looks like we have our first question right down here. If you would like to stand up, we'll toss you a catch box. Give a quick moment while they make their way over there.
I love these catch boxes. They're so cool.
Everybody's excited.
Yeah. You have to test your throw there.
Yes. Perfect.
Bravo.
Thank you so much. First, your story is very inspiring, and thanks for the work that you're
Thanks,
doing.
yeah.
As you said, the beverage market is very competitive. How hard was it for you to maybe establish a foothold? And I guess the second part to my question is, how are you reaching consumers that maybe haven't heard of you or maybe don't know that this kind of alternative exists?
Yeah, so it's, we spend most of, up until actually this year, we have a very large campaign going in New York City right now, the most that we've ever spent on a campaign that is actually really going head-to-head with vitamin water. So we're calling attention to the fact that the vitamins aren't actually in the water, which is a whole new thing, for many, many people. And it's, anyway, it's interesting. It's being very, very well received. But I think that the key thing for us is that we really started to see as we were, building this, that there was so much that we had no idea that, we didn't know. And we could either start to advertise, but I, again, came from advertising way long ago, and I really believe that advertising needs to have, frequency. right? And we just didn't have the money to really have the frequency. So the key thing that we always believed is that, and I still tell entrepreneurs today, like, gone are the days that you can launch a product like Red Bull, for example. No one's ever talked about Red Bull as being great tasting that I've met, right? Like, they like the effect that they get from Red Bull. And so today, I think that the consumer is demanding great tasting products. You could have, all these benefits with it, but it has to be great tasting. And so we decided to give bottles away. And so we have field marketing teams that give bottles away. I would say that the other thing that we ran across when we first started sampling the product is we used to do those little cups, and we'd do lots of events. Everybody needs water at events. And so we would give the sampling cup out. And the interesting thing is that we don't control what consumers had before they actually taste it. And so if somebody had, a chocolate bar, or they had even worse, diet sweeteners actually linger in your mouth 8 to 10 times longer than sugar. And so we always say to people, like, if you really want to taste a product like Hint that doesn't have sweeteners in it, and you really want to taste the blackberry in it, then you have to go brush your tongue. I mean, literally, to get rid of the sweeteners. And so we don't do the little sampling cups anymore. We actually give people a bottle in hopes that they enjoy it. What typically people say is, gosh, I didn't even realize how thirsty I was, how fast it went down. We also, early on, ended up getting distribution in Google and Facebook and some of the companies that I knew, just through some relationships that I had. And basically, I always say, I didn't want to ask for favors. I was kind of like, this was a side project that I was doing, and I still wanted to have dinner with people, and I didn't want them saying, how's the business going, right? And I thought, I just really want to preserve those relationships. And so Google was really the first company that came to us and said, we're going to be giving away water to our employees, and we really hope that employees not only stay here, but also ultimately get healthier. And so, Google very quickly became almost bigger than Whole Foods because their employees were going through so much product. But it's interesting because we've become the largest beverage in Silicon Valley to most of the tech firms now. People have left different companies, started companies. They call us. We've always been about, service, and we'll get in our truck and deliver the product. And even if there are two guys in South Park in San Francisco starting a company, we'll go and do that. And I think that that's really what's differentiated us too. That we've been willing to not only be scrappy, but eat dirt a little bit, right? Which for me, one thing that I didn't really touch on when I started this, I was at a point in my career where I was the youngest vice president at AOL, and I really, loved doing that, but I didn't know why I didn't want to go on to that next level at that point. I felt like I didn't want to be the smartest person in the room anymore, and it's very complicated. I talk again to different types of audiences about this, but I said that I had gotten to a point in my career where I could have continued to rise and go and do other things, but there was this energy with actually going into something that I had no idea and that I could ask why, that was just it was so fulfilling that I thought I can actually go in and learn again and be the person in the room that is actually being taught, right? And that's been, I would say that's been the journey for 13 years, and I'm still learning as I go. But things like the sample cups, who would have known? So, yeah, absolutely.
So how was that when you left AOL, you go to start Hint, but you're coming in a completely different level because you're coming from an executive position, then going back from executive, then saying, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, and you're grassroots at that time. How did you get the support? Because obviously your husband's kind of like, yeah, okay, it's your little side hustle for the day. This is what you're working on. Did you have mentorship or any type of direction when setting up the company? Did you have somebody that you picked up the phone and said, okay, I want to do this, where do I start?
You know, it was interesting looking back on it too, that I feel like what I learned in tech was that it's an industry where you would walk in the room, and if you had a problem, then you would try and figure out who else you would bring into the room. I don't know if anyone's ever felt like this about tech, but who else can we get in the room that can kind of help us think about this stuff? When I went into the beverage industry, I felt like the message was, it's all been written. Like, don't even bother. You're coming from the tech industry, this just isn't gonna happen, and you have to have preservatives, you have to have this, you have to have this. And so I also saw this big deficit that existed because, you know, the big food companies had told people, smart people, that this was the way it was done, right? Versus tech, it's, you know, a younger industry, I guess, and it's filled with people that really want to disrupt and do things to actually make products better or solve problems and change the world, right? And so that was the thing that I felt like I really, really missed when I walked into the food and beverage industry, that it was not, that there wasn't as much of that. And I think that that's really, I would say that that's something that the food and beverage industry now talks about with Hint, that we've been able to attract amazing talent. We have very few people from, that we've hired actually from the food and beverage industry, but really people that have really felt like they wanted to disrupt and solve problems around industries, and smart people, because we think that those are really the people that can really add the most value. It's really changing it.
Now, did you have somebody specific that you were able to bounce things off of? I don't want to say a mastermind group, but you know, before you have a board of directors and before you're fully out, you're kind of delivering your case to Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Did you have some type of group or a couple people that you did?
I mean, I think I just kept asking questions. And I think that that was the thing. And again, from a, you know, personally, I felt like as you grow into a role where suddenly, you know, you're hired into an organization to actually manage a lot of people. When I left AOL, I was managing 200 people. And I thought, here I am, you know, forming teams and putting people on projects, and I'm the one that's responsible for actually doing those things. And so for the first few years, it was really about, you know, me sort of playing a role reversal of trying to actually figure out, you know, how do I do this? And really being vulnerable too. That was, you know, super awesome. Like to be able to walk into a room and say, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I have no idea how to get the shelf life from 6 weeks to now it's 18 months, but I want to figure it out and I want to do it. And I mean, so much so that we've had, you know, large food and soda companies say, I still cannot figure out how you guys actually did this.
How you get the
like
shelf
how
life
you
for
could actually
18 months.
like sit there and look at a problem and try and create, you know, not only a shelf life, but also create a distribution network. I mean, we have over 200 different distributors throughout the country that do not have, you know, large soda attached to them either, that actually get our product so that we can get it throughout
you go,
the
and that's
country.
why we come from tech.
Yeah.
That's
no,
how it
and
works.
that's what you do, right? Like the scrappiness is really more than anything. So, yeah. So.
Lady in the back, if you'd like to stand up, we'll get you a catch box. And then we'll go to the gentleman in the front.
So I just wanted to say that your story is very timely. I swear I had this conversation with my husband on Sunday when he took me to the airport. He said, you know, I need to lose some weight. I got to cut back on the amount of pop I drink. And I swear what came out of my mouth is like, dude, you drink Diet Coke. And so to hear that, I guess I'm going to have to go call him afterwards and tell him that, you know, he was right. But my question is, you mentioned not using preservatives. So how do you preserve the product in the bottles better than you did in the pitcher in your refrigerator?
Yeah, so it's a super interesting story. So for the first 6 months, I mean, we almost shut the company down because we couldn't figure out how to actually do this product, and I did not want to ever use preservatives. And So we basically wouldn't actually sell that much product. We kept a close eye on how much we would sell in order to actually watch the product. And so I knew that, without any type of preservatives in it, maybe we had like 4 weeks on the product that we could actually go and like load up the stores in San Francisco, and that was about it. And I should also mention that my husband, prior to this company, was one of the attorneys on the Adwala botulism case when that whole thing happened. I don't know if you guys remember that, but when the apples fell on the ground and some children actually died from botulism, it was a pretty horrible, horrible situation. And so it was something that we really, he in particular really understood. We wanted to make sure that we were creating a safe product, but we were also not really wanting to put the preservatives in it. And so, one day actually, he was in the kitchen one day, and we were seriously considering just shutting the company down because we didn't know how we could actually create a product without preservatives. And we had one of these Nespresso machines on the counter and started watching just playing with heat and with temperatures. And so I started taking the way that we made the fruit. We use skins and oils of the fruit, but I took the fruit and actually put it on the stove and started playing around with, like I always explain it, like a strawberry, for example, when you're boiling out the sugars, you have to be very, very careful if you've ever made jam before that it can actually change the taste. So a cooked strawberry versus a raw strawberry tastes very different. Same with a cooked carrot versus a raw carrot, and it's all based on the sugars and how that's actually leaving the process. And so we started to look at could you actually pasteurize the product in a way that is not a straight shot of heat, but just variable shots in order to actually get that type of shelf life. And so we took that concept actually to a couple of different bottlers who said, "You're crazy. Like, why would that work? I mean, no one's ever thought of this." And it worked. And so the first time that we did it, we were able to get a 6-month shelf life out of it. We had lots of bottles up on the shelf, making sure that it was going to stay, and we were able to do it. But yeah, I mean, we're at an 18-month shelf life now with no preservatives in the product. If you talk to the soda companies, they all say once you add fruit to your product that you must use preservatives, and we've proven that wrong. You don't have to do it, but we pasteurize, and that's how we do it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sir, if you stand up, and we'll give you a catch box so everybody can hear.
My question was basically the same thing as far as innovation process that you went through to get to where you're at, because I kind of had the same question.
Same question, yeah.
How can this work without some sort of innovation that no one else is doing? No one else must have known about it or thought of it, like you mentioned. So
yeah.
It's basically the same question, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, the tech is still in us. I mean, we geek out on the stuff that, maybe other food and beverage executives don't do. I mean, we recently took 40% of the plastic out of this bottle. The number one thing that consumers were saying to us in our bottle was that they still wanted it to be hard enough. They didn't want the crunchy, regular water bottles. And so we went back and looked at the bottle, and we wanted to take shipping costs out of actually, we were shipping in not only the fruit, but also the bottles and the caps and the labels and everything else. And so we decided, could we actually remove everything, like lots of plastic out of the bottle, and how would we do that? And it was an interesting story. I mean, we really started to look at the neckline, and a lot of the plastic in bottles is actually sitting up in this part. And so we decided to remove it out of there. We also did something else in the closures. This is going to be more than you've ever heard from a beverage executive, but the insides of the caps, 99% of caps are not recyclable. And so, so we actually wanted these caps to be recyclable, and so we removed the liners on the inside. So 100% of this bottle is recyclable. And so that's another thing where we're leading, you know, and every day, I mean, this is how we think about, you know, this industry, like how can we actually do better? And we've had so many executives, not just beverage executives. I had the innovation team at Clorox call me a couple of weeks ago and want to talk to me about it. And we're very open to talking to people, not because we think we're going to get some big offer from them, but because we just want things to be better, right? And there's a lot of things that we can do to make things better. So
do you have a patent on that then?
We don't. I mean, we own this bottle. I mean, we own the shape of it, but
for the lids, for the recyclable lids.
We don't, actually, because we want other people to have access to it. So, you know, that for us is, you know, we want to change things in the industry. We're currently working, a lot of people ask when I'm out speaking about plastic bottles. And so we don't produce our product in cans. 100% of cans today are lined with BPA, which was removed from all plastic bottles. Every can, even if they say no BPA in the can, has a liner of BPA in it. And they're allowed to say that because it's less than 1% of the inside lining of the can. And so in addition to having BPA on the inside of the can, styrene is on the inside of the can also, which is not supposed to be touching food. And so it's lined, it goes aluminum, styrene, and then BPA that actually touches the food. And so I will not actually produce my product in a BPA-filled can. These are no BPA bottles. There's nothing. These are 100% recyclable. But we're actually looking at how can we actually change the can industry as well and develop something that doesn't need to have BPA in it.
Well, now people know more about cans than they've
exactly.
wanted to know.
So lots of different packaging stuff, and we're having fun. I mean, as we go. I mean, that's the beauty of it. It's you know, for me personally, it's really about what's inside the bottle and creating a great product. But then it's also about, you know, how can we actually make the industry better. So I'll just say really quickly, we also developed a sunscreen. So I don't know if you guys heard about that, but a couple of years ago, I had a scare with skin cancer on my nose. And I started to ask the question that a lot of people ask, should I wear sunscreen? Like, is it a good thing? And I looked at this ingredient called oxybenzone that is actually getting a lot of press now with the whole Hawaii, you know, reef issues that are going on. But what the research that I found was that oxybenzone was approved in 1976, even by the FDA, even though the Center for Disease Control said that it may actually exacerbate precancer cells underneath your skin. And so I started looking at, you know, how do I know I have precancer cells living under my skin? And here I am putting sunscreen on myself every time I'm out in the sun, putting it on my kids as well. And I got it. And so I really, so I decided to go back to my kitchen and develop a sunscreen. I had no idea that I would have to deal with the FDA on getting approval. 100% of sunscreens have to be approved by our FDA. And so, so we created a sunscreen that has no oxybenzone in it. Now we have many of the sunscreen companies reaching out to us saying we had no idea that you could actually create a sunscreen without, you know, oxybenzone, which is a UV blocker in it, and it's great. And anyway,
it's from Kara's Ultimate Test
Kitchen. It's from my test kitchen. It took us 2 years to get FDA approval, and Target actually picked it up in January, which is very rare that they typically wait and see. And so it's available nationwide in Target. It's also available nationwide in CVS. And not only are we getting consumers more educated about products, but I love meeting with buyers because they're now, many of them, looking at the rest of the stuff that they're actually putting in the stores and saying, wow, like I had no idea. And then they go back to the large companies and say, hey, you know, this little company in San Francisco did this. Why don't we actually, like, can you guys go create it? Can you reformulate? Can you go and do this stuff too? And so I think from a passion standpoint, I love what I do. Every day I wake up and I feel like I'm actually creating change and having a great time doing it.
So I think we have a time for 2 quick questions. I think we have this gentleman right over here in glasses. You'll stand, sir, and throw you the catch box.
Hey, I'm from Houston. I'll tell you, I discovered your product in a convenience store in Houston called Buc-ee's.
Yeah. Cool.
Buc-ee's was recently voted the cleanest restrooms in America in a 10 stores survey off. I'm also a subscriber, by the way, and I would like to ask you, is there any chance I'm going to see you in Kroger or H-E-B or any of those type of stores anytime in the future?
Yeah, so we're in both of them. I will tell you that we're in H-E-B. We are also in Kroger. Kroger has insisted on having a healthier and better for you section versus, as I've said to them, so what is the beverage aisle? Is that just, you've just written it off as like the not so healthy and better for you section? And so we're in the natural section of the store, which is sometimes kind of far away over in a corner. We're definitely in there. It's interesting. Stores are really tough, and they're hard to change. We're nationwide, not just with the sunscreen, but also with the water in Target. We're also in CVS. So I feel like, now that we're growing, it's funny, even with the direct-to-consumer business is causing the grocery stores to wake up and say, wait a minute, I have customers coming in and saying, hey, this product I want to put it in there. But, we've really fought paying the $60-70 million slotting fees just because we thought that's stupid. I mean, and how can you build a business off of that?
Well, people can special request it too and get it special orders in too, right?
Well, now, and now, I mean, look, it's a different discussion, but grocery stores they're really challenged. I mean, their number one challenge is actually getting people to come in, right? And so they need products like Hint. They need products that are better for you. They need to stop putting, the better for you products in the corner. I mean, it's a crazy way of thinking about it. But, the reality is, it's just like our federal school lunch programs. There's some very big money and big lobbyists behind, these deals that are done, and it's disturbing, it's disgusting. But that's why I love the direct-to-consumer business, because we can go direct to customers, and they don't have to go in those stores if they don't want to. They can actually get groceries delivered to them now, and they don't need to go in there. So either the stores need to figure this out, or they won't be around anymore, and that's the reality. So that's what we're doing. But thanks. Yeah.
If you'd stand up, thank you.
Hi. Anyway, I have a quick
Can you hold the microphone close there?
Like this?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, closer to your mouth. We can hear you.
You just wanted to use the microphone, right?
Like
There,
this?
perfect. There you go.
All right.
I love it.
So I remember sometime in the 80s, I started hearing about natural flavors and some of the weird things that were being called natural flavors, like wood esters and solvents and some other stuff. So I know that you're not using that, but you say natural flavors on your bottle. So I'm wondering, how do you get natural flavors, and can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we also talk about on our bottle that it's vegan, and all of our flavors are from fruit. You are 100% correct, and unfortunately, that is also part of the FDA. That we actually, if we're not using juice, that we have to classify it as natural flavors. And so actually educating consumers that our natural flavors are different. Natural flavors are not just the products that, or the ingredients that you talked about. Natural flavors, for example, in vitamin water, are bone marrow, pink, and it comes from cockroach wings. So all natural. right? But a lot of people are really surprised. You know, they see drinks that say gluten-free, and they're like, oh, wait, what? Like, of course water would be gluten-free, and not so quick. I mean, it's interesting. And so there's been a lot of discussion around actually forcing companies to say exactly what is in those flavors. But I frankly don't have high hopes for that happening in the next few years. I don't think that the FDA actually is that interested in changing it. It's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think that, you know, you just ask as a consumer, and if you're not getting the answers, then don't buy the product, right? That's the key thing. So, because there's a lot of stuff that 100% right that people are hiding behind.
Well, thank you. Kara,
So,
thank
yeah,
you
thanks
so much for being here.
Yeah, have
we
a great rest
appreciate
of the
it.
time.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much
thank
for
you.
being
Yeah,
here
super fun.
and everything. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here in the Big Ideas Theater here at Cisco Live. We appreciate each and every one of you, and enjoy the event tonight. Thank you for being here.